Hi there, it's Mr. Irrelevant on a Friday, February 2nd.
Got to get that R.
Yeah, you have to. I'm Alex Strouf with you from the Everlight Solar Studio in downtown Madison, Wisconsin. Alongside, you just heard the voice of the great producer Tiny Hands, Hunter Vaughn with me. Lots to get into today. As I struggle with the show sometimes because we're only 3 times a week, and there's days like Wednesday, afternoon and night, into Thursday, where we just miss a ton of stuff. So we've got a bunch of cleanup to do from the week that we haven't touched on, right? Like the Packers have a new defensive coordinator. The Badgers are the number 6 team in the country. They blew a 19-point lead last night. We're going to talk about that. What else happened? Corbin Burnes got traded. I don't even have that on my notes if you're watching on the video side. Like, we're going to have to get into that, so we will. I put a poll out on Twitter, just great original content by me that we're going to talk about as well. But I want to talk about the last 24 hours for me first. So, Hunter, I have purposely kept this out of your ears today because, similarly to the Badgers last night, I fell asleep at halftime. I fell asleep at 8:30 p.m. last night. So I missed the second half and overtime of that game. I woke up at about somewhere around 12:45 on my couch, snuggled up in 2 blankets. It was great. But then I didn't fall back asleep until 5:30 a.m.
Why?
Couldn't sleep. I got 4 hours-ish. And I was I felt completely refreshed. How do you function? I got another 3 hours then. I think I slept from like 5:30 to 8, so 2.5 hours. And then
wild.
So I got a total of about 6.5 hours last night. And I feel good. I don't feel any more loopy than I typically do. I'm already kind of a loopy dude to begin with, but I feel normal. Like, it's a normal Friday for me. I feel refreshed. I feel good to go. So, but I missed the second half of the game. I watched the highlights. I read the stories. I read the box score. I think I'm caught up. So these are my takeaways, because when I went to sleep, the Badgers were up by 17 points. I woke up. I actually got a phone call about 12:40 is the reason I woke up. And the person I was talking to, I said, "Did the Badgers win?" And they go, "No, they lost in overtime." And I responded with, "You're effing me." Like, I just thought it was a joke. Like, no, they actually lost. So then I was like, wait a minute, what? So I pulled up the replay on my TV, hung up the phone. I watched a little bit of it. I was like, I can't pay attention to this. This is brutal. They shot 55% the first half from the field, which is really good.
Great.
A lot of points per possession there, as Greg Gard always talks about. Shot 35% from the field in the second half. Then shot 14% from the field in overtime. They went 1 of 7 from the field in overtime versus Nebraska's 4 of 5 from the field in overtime. Also a perfect 100% from the charity stripe. So they lose by 8, 80-72. They had as big of a lead at 19 points. So if you do math, that is a 27, right? 27-point swing. Yep. 19 plus 8 is 27. 27-point swing from the 19-point lead to an 8-point loss. Look, we talked about it on Wednesday. I'm convinced nobody's very good in college hoops. I said, I don't even remember what program that was on, but I said earlier this week that you could convince me the Badgers go 0-2 this week. You could also convince me the Badgers go 2-0 this week, as they have number 2 Purdue coming up at the Kohl Center on Sunday. I just don't know what to make of anybody in college hoops, and that includes the Badgers. I think they're a good team. I just don't think they're number 6 good. I don't know that they're top 10 good. They're probably top 15, top 20 good. I just don't. But again, you could tell me they're number 6 in the country, and I'd believe you, because I don't know who's good. I think UConn's very good. That I believe. UConn is the number 1 team in the country. I think they're the best team in the country. I think Purdue's probably the number 2 team in the country. But I also see the Badgers beating the number 2 team in the country on Sunday. Chip on their shoulder, pissed off, coming off a bad loss. Shut down Zach Edey, get him into foul trouble, you win that game. On your home floor. It's going to be an electric atmosphere. Let me put the PSA now, though. You're going to have... Let me give you the prediction now. What's the date today? February 2nd. My prediction is you have a double-digit seed in the Final Four this year. Double-digit seed in the Final Four. That's my prediction for March Madness this year. I think you're going to have like an 11 seed in the Final Four.
Yeah, I can see that. I think it'll be an 11 seed that's a power conference school.
So I agree, because I think like a team like Michigan State could be an 11 seed.
Exactly.
And they were obviously a preseason top 5 team. Haven't been in the rankings since. The Badgers swept them this year. But that's a team that could get a 10 seed or 11 seed or 9 seed and make a Final Four run. So I do struggle a little bit with with what this team's ceiling is. Because I think every team's ceiling is high and every team's floor is low, outside of maybe UConn and Purdue. You could probably throw Kansas in that mix too, but they've had some bad losses. Duke and UNC have had some bad losses. They go head-to-head tomorrow, which I'm excited to watch, despite UNC's loss to, who was it, Georgia Tech earlier this week? Nobody's good in college basketball. But the Badgers have a brand, and that's the thing that I'm struggling with, because that brand disappeared after halftime, just like I did last night. You have a brand of, like, the brand of basketball they play. With a 19-point lead, they should win every single game they ever play. I don't care if it's Purdue, if it's UConn, or if it's Nebraska on the road, who has not lost a Big Ten game at home this year. The brand of basketball you play is tough defense, and they've struggled defending the three. We saw that in the second half last night. Nebraska shot 40% from outside, 6 threes in the second half, including a bunch from Wilcher off the bench. He hit 5 threes last night, 5 of their 9 off the bench in 28 minutes of play.
Now, I'm going to be honest. I was paying attention to a few other things.
Yeah.
Have you seen what the bench point difference was in this game?
I imagine it was massive because of the 22 from C.J. Wilcher.
Yes.
So the 22 plus 9 is 31, plus 3 is 34, plus 2 is 36 for Nebraska.
Yep.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Blackwell had 3. Connor had 3, which is 6. Gilmore and Winter each had 2. That's 10. 10 to 34?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a difference.
Yep, that run that Nebraska went on in the second half was because of their bench. Like, they didn't have their starters.
Season left. Still a lot to improve on and to get after and to figure out. So we'll see what happens. They could, the Badgers will probably still be a 4 seed, maybe even better.
I'm going to imagine that other than maybe losing to Purdue here, that they're going to probably be sitting at a 2 or a 3.
Oh, you still have them that high.
Yeah, I think with the way that the rest of the Big Ten is and their body of work so far through this season, that win against Marquette is going to carry them a long way.
The win against Marquette helps. If they beat Purdue on Sunday, obviously that helps. I mean, they have them twice. They have them in the regular season finale as well at Purdue. But game on Sunday is big. If you get a win there, you did lose to Tennessee, so they'll have a better case than you. And Dalton Connect has had a terrific season for the Volunteers. Really starting at that game back in November at the Kohl Center was really the start of his nice run. What else do you have? I mean, Illinois comes to town next week or 2 weeks. They're a top 15 team in the country right now. So there's some games in Big Ten play that if you win, your resume is going to boost. But when you go to a place like Nebraska, which, by the way, the Badgers have struggled against the Cornhuskers the last 3 years. They've at least lost 1 game to them each of the last 3 years. You have to beat a team like that, despite the fact they are terrific at home and not very good on the road. So that one I struggle with, but yeah, you're right. If they get 2 more big wins, they could be a 3 seed. And it also obviously depends on what they do in the Big Ten tourney, which that could shore up some things too.
Well, in the game last night, it almost felt like this is what a tournament game is going to be like for them, in the sense of there's a good chance they're going to have to go to Kansas City and play. And then once they're there, you're going to, obviously, Wisconsin fans will travel to Kansas City very well. It's an 8-hour drive from Madison. Like, it's an easy drive.
We're hopping in the car,
and
right?
Yeah, and it's totally fine. But then you're going to have those other fans there who are going to be cheering against you, because that's just what happens. And you're going to have a hostile environment in the tournament.
Yeah.
It always happens, because odds are, say they're a 3 seed, you're going to be on the other side. Then you're going to have the 6-11 would be the other 2 teams, because then you're playing the 14 in the first round.
Yep.
Like, odds are that 6 seed's probably another Power 5 conference school. They're not going to want to see you advance, so you're going to have all of those fans against you too. You can't let a team go on a 19-point run.
You're overthinking this.
I'm not. That's what's going to happen. That's the environment they're going to be in.
How many first round or second round, I guess that technically is, NCAA basketball games have you been to in your life? Seriously.
I haven't been to a tournament game.
I've been to several.
Okay, but I've watched those games.
The environment, I mean, now granted, I've been to games in Milwaukee, so obviously that's a little bit different than like
that
Kansas
doesn't
City.
count. That's a home game.
But so is Kansas City. Badgers fans travel better than everybody.
It's not, though, if you get a Big 12 team sitting on that 6th seed.
Okay. I guess I won't argue with that. But I'm not that focused on the bracket yet.
I know. I'm just saying that this is kind of what you need to be able to prove that you can do.
You're just a Badgers hater.
I'm not. I want them to be good. I want them to, like, That's not an issue for me. I'm just saying that this was a really frustrating game, not only losing when you have a 19-point second-half lead. It's the fact that you need to show that you can win these games on the road, and
the thing
they didn't
is,
show it.
well, they did show up, just not in the second half. A.J. Storr did, but everybody else kind of disappeared. I hate getting on college kids, but Steven Crowell having 1 point and shooting 0 for 2 from the field when you're playing 35-plus minutes is kind of inexcusable as a big in the Big Ten. Right? Chucky Hepburn was a really nice first half, went on that, I think it was a 7-0 run for him by himself, which was really nice and built up that lead in the first half. But second half, they disappeared. Overtime was non-existent. They couldn't make it. They couldn't throw a ball into the ocean, right? So it's frustrating. It is what it is, but it's only the beginning of February. There's a lot of ball left to play, and the Badgers could still have a really nice resume, but it could also be a year like last year where they win one and lose one and win one and lose one, despite the fact they're the number 6 team in the country. So Sunday's a big one. You walk into that one with a chip on your shoulder in a hostile environment for your opponent at the Kohl Center against number 2 Purdue. That's a game they should at least be in, if not win. So we will find out. Looking forward to being there on Sunday. We'll talk more Badgers on Monday after the game against Purdue. I do want to get to the Corbin Burnes news. He's traded to the Baltimore Orioles in exchange for 2 players, a prospect, pitcher DL Hall, and a pick. We'll get to that in a second, but I want to go a little bit lighthearted because there's a lot of bad news to report today. I just want to have an open forum conversation for a moment. So yesterday I put a poll on Twitter. I just tweeted this: what is the worst way to sign an email? I'm guilty of at least one of these. The options in alphabetical order were best. So, like, I'm saying at the signature of an email, right? So what is the worst way to sign an email before signing your name? Best, cheers, which is the one I do. That's the one I'm guilty of. Sincerely, or warm regards. We got over 300 votes on the poll on Twitter. We got over 15 responses on the poll on Twitter. People were intrigued by this, which I'm glad, because I was very intrigued by this. Because I came to the conclusion yesterday, I don't know what the hell warm regards means. And I get that quite a lot, right? Like, it feels like that's a very common email signature, right? Warm regards, Alex. I don't know what the hell that means. Is that a diss? Is that used rudely? Is it people were tweeting in saying, like, passive aggressive is warm regards? I saw one tweet that said, from our buddy Pratik, if I ever see an email with warm regards, I'm just going to assume that person is telling me to go to hell, right? Like, that's kind of how I feel about warm regards. I'm a cheers guy because you can't spin that one negatively, right? Cheers, Alex.
It's also a little pretentious, though, by saying cheers. It's like you're trying to be British.
Yeah, and somebody actually did tweet me that, which is funny you say that. Somebody said, where is it? You can't say cheers if you're not British. And I said, I'm sad to report I'm not British. So maybe I should stop using cheers. Maybe I should just be a casual thanks guy.
Yeah, go thanks if you have any additional questions.
No, that's gross. That's gross.
Why?
It needs to be quick and concise sign off. Best. I'm fine with best, actually.
I go no.
Couple people chimed in with this one, including Wes Hodkiewicz from Packers.com. Talk soon. He said that's a threat. Talk soon is a threat. And that can come off passive-aggressive, too. So I am in the process of trying to master the email signature. I want to figure out what the best email signature is. I felt like it was cheers for a long time. I'm starting to think that might just come off a little douchey and pretentious, to your point. So I've got to figure out what it is. And I don't know what, because I think thanks is boring. Sincerely is boring.
You can change it up, like, based on the conversation.
I'm a consistent guy.
But if you want to be passive-aggressive, then you have routes to go.
Warm regards?
Yeah. Like,
Talk soon.
You could easily set this up where you're just going in a multiple different directions. You're the Swiss Army knife of email etiquette.
Ooh.
See? Got to be a 5-tool player out there, Alex. I'm dropping the Alex on you because I think this is the route you need to go.
I'm going to add to my Twitter bio, Swiss Army knife of email etiquette.
There you go.
That's
You're
high
welcome.
praise. That's high praise. All right, I'm gonna test a few out. I'll report back next Friday on what I land on. Because look, I'm not gonna be the Swiss Army knife. Like, I just need to come clean. I don't have that in me. I need a one quick, concise, consistent way to sign an email. I always felt like cheers was the best option, but I think I've used that one out. I've been using that for years. Like, I was probably saying cheers before I was 21, and that's why I think it comes off as douchey.
A little gross. Yeah,
it's gross. So I am 25. I think I got to switch it up. I'm now in this, like, like this I'm in this part of my life now where I'm transitioning from like a kid that's growing up to like, okay, you're actually a full-blown professional now. You've had this full-time job for 3+ years. Like, figure it out, dude. So I'm open to suggestions. YouTube chat, Twitter me at Alex_Strouf, Facebook comments, whatever you're watching us on, or tweet me if you're listening to the podcast. Any suggestions are welcome. You can go find the poll on Twitter at Alex_Strouf as well. All right. Don't have it in the notes. Hunter, I'm going to give you the floor, though. Corbin Burnes traded to the Baltimore Orioles yesterday for the number 63 overall prospect, according to MLB Pipeline. Joey Ortiz is an infielder. They get the left-handed pitcher, D.L. Hall, in a don't know what this means. I'm not a huge baseball guy. 2024 competitive balance round A draft pick, which is number 34 overall. I don't really know what that means, competitive balance. Is it kind of like a compensatory pick in the NFL?
Yeah, it's just baseball has to be weird and come up with weird words for everything.
Competitive balance round A draft pick. Anyway, so you get D.L. Hall, a fine pitcher. You get a nice prospect with Joey Ortiz. You get essentially a first-round draft pick. The Crew does. But you lose one of the best pitchers in baseball. By the way, a former Cy Young Award winner in Corbin Burnes. You already lost Brandon Woodruff, who's still a free agent, so theoretically I guess he could come back, but I don't see that happening given everything that went down last year. And now I saw a rumor, and I don't know how true it is, that maybe Devin Williams is on the block, the star reliever for the Brewers. So my question to you, Hunter, briefly, is what the hell's going on? What are they doing? What's the plan here? Because last week we were all hyped up. We were fired up about the Crew. We were excited about what they had going on, right? You bring in Rhys Hoskins. You have an everyday option at first base. He's a 30-home run guy. He's in a hitter-friendly park. That's a big signing. That's a nice splash. But then you go and trade your best starting pitcher. You already lost your other best starting pitcher in free agency, or going to eventually. And now there's a rumor mill about your best reliever being sent out. So what the hell's the game plan here? What are we doing?
So everyone is talking about it in the Brewers baseball world about how Corbin Burnes had 1 year left on his deal. So really the Orioles are sending 2 future guys in order to get a 1 year rental. The Orioles won 100 games just over 100 games last year. Yeah, like he's going to up their win total essentially, probably by double digits, just with how good of a pitcher he is.
He's a very good pitcher. I would agree with that.
But my problem is the Brewers go and make these moves like we talked about last week. Keep this guy for a 1 year move. I don't care about the future. I want to try and win now. That's why I was so pissed off about Jesse Winker getting at bats in the playoffs.
Is he still a Brewer?
I hope not. I don't literally I'm trying to block him out of my mind. I really hope he's not. So my issue is, again, we're going to go and, okay, let's go and make some moves, up the offense, and good. And then try and help this pitching staff. And then, okay, we'll just send this guy off because, we're not going to get him for a year. Stop trying to rationalize the Brewers front office for not wanting to win now. I know Jim Rutledge is going to sit in this chair next to you from 4 to 6, and he's going to talk about how, look at the Brewers. All they care about is just making the playoffs. And he's right, and I hate it. I hate it so much.
Yeah, he is right.
They've made the playoffs 4 out of the last 5 years. Yep. That would have been great a decade ago. I want to actually compete for a freaking championship now. I'm feeling the same way I felt about the Bucks early in Giannis's career, where it was, okay, cool, they made the playoffs. I don't care anymore. I don't care what they do in the regular season. I don't care if they make the wild card. I want to see NLCS or bust every season out of this franchise now. And they won't do it, and I'm pissed off.
I see that on TikTok later. I better see that on TikTok later.
It probably will.
That might be your all-time greatest rant. Well done. This is why I give you the floor. I'm a baseball fan. They play 162. I probably watch 40 games a year until the postseason. Then I'll lock in a little bit more. I listen to a few, but I go to a few. But I'm not the biggest baseball fan in the world. I understand the game. I get how it works. I understand the lack of a cap and all the chaos that goes on within it. But I don't get this one. This one doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, there's even a YouTube comment here from SDN40. Another 5'9" slap hitter, going to be a great girls softball team. That's the thing. I talked about it last week. This is a hitter-friendly ballpark.
It is.
It's a weird thing with AmFam Field, and I know this gets super into things, but when the roof is closed and they open up those shutters out in center field,
yeah, absolutely,
it turns it into a vacuum and it sucks the ball out. That's why Prince Fielder and Ryan Braun were incredible. That's why Christian Yelich all of a sudden had a huge jump because that ballpark is ridiculous for power hitters.
Nice year?
Yes, exactly. You just go get power hitters. I would rather see.
Hold on. Time out. So I guess my follow-up on that then, Hunter, would be, are you more frustrated with the Burnes trade, or are you more excited about the Rhys Hoskins addition? Is it Burnes more frustrated?
I think Burnes right now because it's so recent.
So try to fast forward then. Let's go a week in the future. You're still excited about Hoskins, but you're still pissed about Burnes? Because two things can, of course, be true, but I'm just trying to figure out what the balance is. Okay, I follow. All right.
Yeah, and it's also like you could have kept Burnes until the trade deadline.
Yeah.
Because then the Orioles still would have traded for him. And if they're in at all some sort of a fight with Tampa Bay for the division, you could have gotten them into a bidding war for this ace pitcher.
Yeah.
There's plenty of AL teams that would have taken him. I would have been even more mad if they sent him to an NL team. I hate it when my team does that.
They're not going to do that.
I know, but like teams will do that and it pisses me off too. Like, don't help out somebody you need to compete against.
Yeah.
Like, it's stupid. But again, you could have forced a bidding war later in the season and probably gotten even more for him.
Okay, I agree with that, but I mean, clearly there was something going on here that he wanted to be out. Like, he tweeted for the first time in a year and a half, right as this news came out. So clearly he was unhappy in Milwaukee. He goes to Baltimore, a team that is focused on winning a championship, and he's going to have the opportunity to do that. All right, enough bad news for today. Badgers blow a big lead. Corbin Burnes out of Milwaukee, rather. Warmest regards to Corbin Burnes. That would be the way I view this. Let's talk about some good news, right? Like, there was good news in the last 48 hours that I'm excited about. And I'm really excited to get Rob Demovsky, ESPN NFL Nation reporter covering the Packers. He's going to join us in about 10 minutes just to break down the good news. Jeff Hafley, the former Boston College head coach, introduced as the Packers defensive coordinator earlier in the week. This news came through about Wednesday night, pretty much made official immediately. He was one of those under-the-radar candidates. So I do a daily podcast called Green Bay Every Day with our buddy Alex Gravatt that lives on Wisconsin On Demand, wherever you get your podcast in the Green and Gold Fix podcast feed. And we played a clip from Rob earlier in the week when he was on Kyle Brust Nortman on ESPN Wisconsin. And he kind of said, I'm hearing there's some mystery candidates. And literally later that afternoon, it's announced that Jeff Hafley, one of the mystery candidates, takes the job as the Packers defensive coordinator. I tweeted an official statement Wednesday night. I did about 35 minutes of research. I tweeted an official statement. My official statement is I like the hire. Now, this is kind of how coaching changes go in the NFL especially. You're either an optimist or you're a pessimist, and you don't give them a fair shake. I'm an optimist for these reasons. 2 weeks ago, when Joe Barry was fired, I laid out essentially the job qualifications that I would like to see checked off, right? Like, you must have X experience, you must have this background, you must have efficiency in Microsoft Office, right? Like, you see it in job qualifications and job postings all the time. So I kind of built up my dream qualifications for a defensive coordinator for the Packers. And with Jeff Hafley, he checks a lot of those boxes. Head coaching experience, check. Last 4 years at Boston College. Power 5 school, leading a program, can be a confidant of sorts to Matt LaFleur, right? Somebody he can bounce ideas off of. Check. Head coaching experience. How about experience in the NFL? Check. Has experience with San Francisco as a D-backs coach, was an analyst and assistant with Tampa Bay during the Greg Schiano era. Check. Right? He checks that box. Not a first-time coordinator. Check. He was a co-defensive coordinator at Ohio State, obviously was a head coach at Boston College, but head coaching in college is a little bit different than the NFL, right? You're more of a figurehead, you're more doing recruiting, you're more focused on other things. So his year at Ohio State, I still view important despite the co-title, but he also did have the best player in college football, Aaron Chase Young. But I will take it. So all of the above with Jeff Hafley, he checks those boxes that I was looking at, that I wanted to see, be important. Hunter just popped the record at Boston College on the screen for Jeff Hafley. Of course, it's not great, but it's freaking Boston College. 22 and 26.
ACC.
3 bowl game appearances. I get it, but they haven't been a powerhouse since when? Matt Ryan was there 15, 20 years ago.
And the ACC has one good team.
Clemson? Florida State? Who are we referring to?
I mean, last year it was Florida State. Before that, it was Clemson.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's not a good conference.
Duke's been okay the last couple of years.
Well, they've been fine. I mean, they've been great for Duke standards.
Hey, Boston College, three bowl appearances in 4 years for Jeff Hafley. We'll take it. So overall, I like this hire. I like why they made this hire. I like the idea of them going, a non-traditional route. Now, I would have been excited had Zach Orr now the defensive coordinator for the Ravens, who we talked about on Wednesday with Chris Orr's brother. If he would have gotten the job, it was just not realistic. I would have loved if they gave, like a Rex Ryan another shot at defensive coordinator. But this is different. This is more of a, hey, you got to prove it thing. And the other part of this that pisses me off, the thing that always frustrates me, especially when Matt LaFleur makes hires, is everybody's like, oh, it's just Matt LaFleur's friend getting a gig. Like, it's not like he's doing this dude a favor. The dude was a head coach at a Power 5 school. This isn't a favor for Jeff Hafley. Like, hey, buddy, you're unemployed. Come be my defensive coordinator. They're acquaintances. They know of each other. Hafley worked under Matt LaFleur's friend Robert Saleh in San Francisco when they had some really good defenses, which led to Saleh getting a head coaching job. Hafley, through Pete Thamel, pretty much explained his reasoning for leaving Boston College was the fact that college football isn't sustainable, right? The trajectory that college football on is not for a football guy. And Jeff Hafley is about that ball. He's not about internal recruiting 24/7, which is the problem with college football now. The transfer portal is an issue. NIL is an issue. Competitive balance is an issue. There are tons of issues within college football. And I feel for guys like Luke Fickell, the head coach at Wisconsin, because he is a football guy, but he does understand his role as a head coach now. It's about internal recruiting. It's about external recruiting. It's about getting in the transfer portal. It's about winning your in-state recruiting battles. That's what college football has been made into. Unfortunately, the product on Saturday is still watchable. It's still enjoyable. But the job strategy, the job security for a head coach, it stinks now. Because the transfer portal and NIL is ruining college football. And this is not me saying I don't believe players should capitalize on their name, image, and likeness, because I'm absolutely an advocate for that. I absolutely believe in that. But I don't believe in the fact that a head coach can't be a head coach anymore. So Jeff Hafley jumping ship to the NFL, and some can view it as a demotion, right? He's going from head coach to defensive coordinator. He's not making the Jim Harbaugh transition from head coach to head coach. He's making the head coach to defensive coordinator transition. So yeah, you can view it as a demotion, but if I'm Jeff Hafley, this is the biggest promotion I've ever received. This is a blessing. I don't have to worry about going to A.J. Dillon. Well, probably a bad example because he won't be on the team next year, but he's a Boston College grad. That's why I'm using him. I don't have to worry about going to A.J. Dillon at Lambeau Field next year and saying, hey, bud, we really think you've got a role on this team next year. You shouldn't consider going elsewhere. You can make that pitch to a guy that's on an expiring contract, which is only going to be 15 or 20 people versus every single player on your team that wants to go play at Bama. So, yeah, I'm a little pissed off at college football. I'm a little pissed off by people that say, hey, he just hired his friend as a favor. That's my issue with it, because this guy is clearly qualified for the position. Clearly qualified. NFL experience, check. Defensive coordinator experience, check. Head coaching experience, check. He checks all the boxes. So, yeah, maybe they have a friendly relationship. Who gives a damn? That's my issue with it. Go ahead, Hunter, quickly before we get to our buddy Rob Demovsky.
Is it at all concerning for you if they are this close of friends with if things go south?
I don't think they're that close of friends.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because I at least understand that argument to it, as opposed to, again, he's just doing his friend a favor. I think that's insane.
Well,
no NFL head coach would do that. We did like
this little reaction video yesterday where we had note cards of people's reactions, and somebody said one and done. And look, he's going to get a fair shake. They wouldn't fire Joe Barry after a year or 2 years. It took 3 years. Jeff Hafley's going to get a fair shake. So anyway, exhale. My college football rant is over. I'm incredibly excited to talk with who's joining us now. He's a state champion father, state champion reporter. He covers the Packers for ESPN's NFL Nation. It is our buddy Rob Demovsky joining us now on Mr. Irrelevant. And Rob, I don't know how much of my very fiery rant you just heard in regards to the state of college football and why this is a good decision for Jeff Hafley, despite the fact it may be viewed as a demotion of sorts. Can you just talk about the friendship that everybody is pointing out? Because I don't think that Matt LaFleur and Jeff Hafley are like best buddies.
No, Alex, it's great to be with you.
Good to see you as well, buddy.
Hope you can hear me okay.
I can.
Just parked here. So here's the deal. I know the initial report said that they have been longtime friends. I was told that that's not accurate, that they have a lot of mutual friends. Robert Saleh, Kyle Shanahan, Ryan Downard, who's on the staff, Mike Pettin even, but that they had never worked together and had never really spent any significant time together away. He just came recommend like if you and I are going to host a radio show and we're looking for a third person, like we're going to call people in the business that we know, right? We're going to call our friends, at the radios, ESPN 1000 in Chicago or wherever, and say, hey, what do you think of this guy? I've heard, and that's what this is. This is not like, it's not like these guys, go to Hawaii with their wives every May or whatever. I was told that they really don't have a personal relationship. And that was something that they really wanted known, because that's a misconception that he was, hiring a buddy of his. So I do think that it's an interesting out of the box hire that I think has a chance to be a difference maker, rather than, and I'm not saying that hiring the DB coach from Baltimore, the linebacker coach, isn't a good idea, but I like the fact that they have tried this defensively, so much, and we, with assistant coaches, with coordinators that have been in the league, and the results have been okay at best. I like the fact that they're trying a little bit more of a non-traditional route with this position. And look, the risk is probably higher, probably a much higher risk, but I also think that there's a chance that it could end up being really good.
I agree with you, Rob. I tend to be. I'm usually optimistic when it comes to the Packers, just given my DNA. But with this hire, I kind of built out. I was just talking about this. I built out like almost like a job sheet, right? Like if you're applying for a job, you have the qualifications box. I wanted somebody with NFL experience. I wanted somebody with defensive coordinator experience. I wanted somebody with head coaching experience, whether that's collegiate or NFL. And he checks all those boxes. So that's what excites me. Now, the thing that does worry me a little bit is he's never been a solo D coordinator, right? His 1 year at Ohio State, he was a co-defensive coordinator. And being a head coach in college football is so different in 2023, 2024 than it was in 2004, right? You're not all about ball. You're about internal recruiting.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. You're a figurehead at that point.
Raising NIL money, all that stuff.
Exactly. You're a fundraiser to a point. And I think that, as it came out through Pete Thamel, that was kind of his issue with being a head coach in college football. So that's why it excites me. He checks a lot of the boxes that I wanted to see whoever fills this position check.
Yeah, I'm optimistic that it's going to be something different for them and something that has a chance to be successful. And look, he kind of fits the makeup of the staff in the sense that there's a lot of coaches in their 40s, young, what I would still consider younger head coaches, or younger coaches. Now, obviously, Rich Bisaccia is the father figure, veteran on the staff. But I mean, it's a young, energetic staff. You look on the offensive side of the ball. Adam Stenovich, Jason Vrabel, the receivers coach, who's as young and energetic. John Dunn, the tight ends coach. There's just a lot of good young energy on the defensive side. Now, we don't know who all is coming back, but Ryan Downard, who's a DB coach, has that same sort of young vibe about him. Now, I do think that there's probably a chance that, they have some new defensive assistants and not everybody comes back. But I do think that staff chemistry is really important. And I think they have a chance to make this hire sort of fit with what they are as a coaching staff. And I should mention, guys like Ben Sermons, their running backs coach, who he has done such an outstanding job with the running backs. And he's not young, but he's certainly younger in in his coaching track in the NFL. And just guys like that I think, Greg Williams, their corners coaches who coached the corners this year. They just have a lot of those guys that are probably in their late 30s to early to mid 40s that really have an energy about them. And I think Jeff Hafley kind of fits that.
Mid 30s, late 30s, you fit right in, Rob. You should make the transition over. You fit right in.
It's funny, Alex, when I first started doing this, I was the same age as the players. And now I'm younger than the coaches.
Yeah, that's. I'm
sorry, the coaches. I mean, the coaches are younger than me.
Than you, right? Yeah,
yes, I'm older. I'm older than the coaches. It's crazy.
Well, that means you've been successful at least, because you and Wildy have that in common, right? Like, you've been doing this a long time, dude. You've seen a lot of stuff.
I was scared to death of Mike Holmgren and Ray Rhodes and Fritz Shermer and those guys. I mean, I was 25 years old, and these guys were giants in the industry.
Yeah.
And now I look at Matt LaFleur, and I'm like, who is this kid, right? No, I'm kidding.
I mean, it's when he came in, though, I bet you had that reaction similarly to how you do with Jeff Hafley, right? Like, everybody saw the reports, and you're a little bit more plugged in than like us as fans, Rob. But when I saw that come through, I went, I didn't see that one coming. And you were ahead of the curve, because Wednesday afternoon, I heard you say and reacted to you on the air saying that there's probably mystery candidates. I didn't see this one coming. I had to pull up the Wikipedia page and some YouTube interviews, Rob.
Yeah. I didn't see the specific person coming, but I was told, and I said this on with Kyle and Brad Nortman on Wednesday, that I was told there's candidates that no one knows about, and there's going to be, it's probably going to be someone that's a little bit off the radar and maybe non-traditional. I didn't know what that meant at the time. I didn't know who that meant. But when I heard the news about Jeff Hafley, I said, oh, okay, well, that's what my source was talking about here, where it's a little bit of a non-traditional type of hire.
I'm with you on that. All right, let's transition over to the general manager, Brian Gutekunst, who met with you guys yesterday for a season-ending presser. So this will be my fourth off season with ESPN Wisconsin, and this is the first end of season presser that I remember Goody being very committal about things, right? Like, yeah, we're going to pay Jordan Love. We're going to try to go get some impact players in free agency. What did you make of how committal he was? He was like committing to things. He was very, very definitive. I'm not used to that.
Yeah, they're not trading Jair Alexander, right? Things like that. Here's why, Alex, I think he's just in a spot right now where he's comfortable in his own job, for one. He doesn't have, Aaron Rodgers looking over his shoulder, two. And he's had some success, right? So he's just confident in himself and more comfortable in sharing their philosophy. Now, clearly, he comes from the Ted Thompson school of no information of any kind should get out of the organization, right? And I'm sure while Brian is very good with us, I'm sure it's like very low on his things that he really wants to do is talking to the media, because he just doesn't want any competitive advantage out there in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, I think there was definitely a switch in how he feels in the job and sort of where he can take it, from a comfort standpoint, and the fact that, look, it's pretty much his team now, right? Like, it's his quarterback. There's only a couple of players that were acquired before he was GM, Bakhtiari being one of them, Kenny Clark, but there's very few of those guys, left. Aaron Jones is one of them.
Yep.
But, it's just, I think he's a guy who's comfortable in his own skin and knows where he wants to take this franchise. And they took a good step toward getting there. There's obviously the next steps are probably even harder to take than, from going from where they were at the end of the Rodgers time to now. To take the next step and be a consistent 11, 12, 13 win team is probably an even harder step to take. And I do think that was one of the themes of his press conference was, and we heard Matt LaFleur say this after the 49ers game, that just because we did this year doesn't guarantee anything.
Totally.
And I think he was clearly trying to send the message to the players through the media. I mean, but let's not be naive here. When those guys stand up at the podium, they're not just talking to us and the fans. They're talking to the locker room. And he clearly, and they as an organization are clearly trying to hammer home that, we haven't accomplished anything yet, and it's going to take a lot more to get back in this position. And you can't just coast through this offseason. And with a young team, I think that's a message that probably needs to be stated and restated time and time again.
Yeah, complacency won't be allowed, which I appreciate from Matt LaFleur, and I thought that message was very clear last week. I am a firm believer, Rob, there is such thing as a stupid question. I might be asking you one by asking this question, but the championship window is open for the Packers as it stands February 2nd, 2024, you would say, right?
Right. Yeah, I actually wrote a piece, Alex, about that on ESPN.com last week about how their window has reopened and how long it might be open for.
Well, that's a hell of a plug. You're an industry professional, Rob Demovsky. Go check it out, ESPN.com, ESPNWisconsin.com. I'm fascinated by it because obviously you and I talked every Sunday this year, or every Monday, Thursday, whatever day the Packers played.
Pre-game, yep.
Pre-game on Green Bay game day. And in October, we're having conversations of, is Jordan Love the guy? And all of a sudden, You win at Dallas. You compete with San Francisco, a game they probably should have won, Rob. And here we are, just a couple weeks removed from the end of the season, a week ahead of the Super Bowl, saying, yeah, this is a team that can probably compete and should be back there next year. Although it's not a given, it's just crazy to me how well the youth movement plan worked for Brian Gutekunst in year one. It's still hard to comprehend.
And I remember sitting there in the media auditorium on the last day of the draft, April, whatever it was, 30th, and Brian Gutekunst basically saying, like, we have a group that we want to grow together. Because, look, we were grilling them about why you haven't signed a veteran tight end, why you didn't bring back Mercedes Lewis, why you didn't, find a veteran receiver to help this group. And, we all kind of like, well, is this plan really going to work? And halfway through the season, we were still asking that. But, you got to give them credit for, putting together a plan for a young group to grow together. But none of that would have mattered if you didn't draft the right people. And it sure looks like, for the most part, you look at the last two drafts, Alex, and then you look at what the window is. First of all, anybody drafted in 2022 or 2023 has 2 or 3 more years under contract, right? So they have, and it's I believe it was 13. It's in that story. 13 of the 22 starters from the playoff game are under contract with the Packers for 2 or more years. 19 of the 22 are under contract for at least next year. But of those 19, 13 have 2, 3, or 4 years still under contract. So when you talk about the window, it's there. Now, do they still have to? I think there's some important pieces. Obviously, Aaron Jones, we heard yesterday, is going to be back, but they're going to have to find, the next running back of the future. I still think that they need a tackle, although Rasheed Walker, played okay. I do think there's some important pieces still on offense, even though they're super young on offense, that they need to keep that window open.
All right, a couple of quick hitters before I let you get back on the road, Rob. Appreciate you taking the time and pulling over. Way to be safe. Proud of you, buddy. So biggest positional need this offseason for the Packers that isn't safety?
I was going to say defensive back, but so you took that out. I will say I'll say left tackle, unless they're planning to move Zach Tom, which I don't think I would move Zach Tom.
I wouldn't.
And Goody sort of suggested that moving him might be kind of a mistake, although he thought he could play all 5 positions. I think you need a franchise left tackle, another one of those guys.
So I guess my yes or no question is David Bakhtiari a member of the 24 Packers? You kind of just answered that.
Yeah, I don't think so. But even if he is, it's probably 1 more year and that's it. So you're still going to need that guy. And as we've seen with the quarterback, the best time to draft someone for the future is when you still have one. And that doesn't just go for quarterback really either. That's why next year with a running back would be perfect. If Aaron Jones has 1 more year left in him, then you bring a guy in and sort of let him develop under, behind Aaron Jones.
Great transition, Rob. I keep calling you an industry professional. I would assume that means A.J. Dillon probably not back despite being a fan favorite.
Yeah, I mean, I could see a scenario where he goes into the open market and he's offered a bunch of 1-year deals, as prove-it deals, and he goes back to the Packers and said, hey, if it's 1 year, $5 million or whatever it is, I'm just throwing. I haven't looked at the running back salary market yet. If Tennessee or whoever's offering me that, I'd rather come back here. Would you sign me for a similar deal? I could see a scenario in which they say, yeah, we'll make a modest 1-year investment. And I mean, if I'm not mistaken, they did that with. Did they do that with Eddie Lacy, or did he just run out his rookie contract and that was it? I feel like he did a 1-year. Prove it.
I think he did.
1-year deal after. I could be wrong on that, but they've done that with guys before. I think they did it with Nick Perry after his rookie contract.
They did. Yep.
Expired. They did a 1-year. Let's just give it 1 more crack. I could see it. I don't think it's the most likely scenario for A.J. Dillon, but I could see it.
People forget Eddie Lacy was a rookie of the year. I just want to throw that out there. People forget that.
Eddie Lacy had the first 2.5, 3 years of his career were darn good. That was darn productive.
He was a good back. People forget that. All right, Rob, appreciate you taking the time, my friend. Always good catching up with you. Looking forward to seeing you at the greatest regular season high school basketball game in a couple of weeks between De Pere and Pewaukee. Looking forward to seeing you there.
Looking forward to it. It'll be great. Get your people should get their tickets in advance. I think it's probably going to sell out.
2 weeks from tomorrow, man. It's going to be a packed gym. I'm looking forward to being there. The great Rob Demovsky. Thanks, Rob.
All right, we'll see you.
He's the best, man. That was awesome. Always informative. Always great stuff. And look, like I love that he's dropping Nick Perry and Eddie Lacy references, because those are like good draft picks that you forget about as a Packers fan, because we're so spoiled, and you're constantly focused on the quarterback play and the quarterback transitions and some of the lackluster defensive play. Nick Perry was a stud for a year or two. Eddie Lacy was like the best running back in football his rookie year. That might be a little dramatic, but he was like a top 5 back for 2 years there. So that's a fun one. I wish we could have just done the game that I've referenced before that I love playing. It's just like name a random Packer. I bet Rob, I have a brilliant idea. I just had the best content idea ever. We need to get an episode with Rob and Jason Wilde and have them go back and forth naming non-all-pro Packers from the time they've covered the team. They can never be an all-pro. Non-all-pros only, maybe non-pro bowlers even, and just let them get deep-cut Packer players back and forth for like a half an hour. That'd be so much fun.
See, or you turn it into a game with them to see who really knows the team the best, and then you can't double up. So the first one to get one wrong or double up loses.
This is why we do this show. Off-season ideas, man.
Yes.
All right, we're going to get Wilde and Demovsky in the same show, and we're just going to play a game with them. I love the idea of this. All right, good stuff. Big thanks to Rob. You can get him on Twitter, of course, at Rob Demovsky, as well as at ESPN.com. He's so good, man. He referenced the piece about the championship window. I actually did read that. I just forgot to plug it. But I'm a huge fan of his work and always appreciate when he takes a few minutes. He pulled over on the side of the road for us. What a dog.
What a guy.
Appreciate that. All right, you learn something new every day. Time to wrap up the show. I learned something new today. It's time now for What Strouf Learned as we wrap up the week here on Mr. Irrelevant. Next week, Super Bowl week. Looking forward to some of the guests we've got lined up for that one. We'll talk a little Badgers hoops as well next week with a guest or two. So really looking forward to all the stuff we're bringing to you next week ahead of San Francisco and Kansas City. But I do want to discuss the fact that today is Groundhog's Day. And, I learned this yesterday. So I always knew. So I formerly lived in Sun Prairie. I've mentioned before, I recently moved back into the city of Madison. But I lived in Sun Prairie for 2 years. And annually on the town square in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, they do a Groundhog Day proclamation with a groundhog, and it's coffee and T-shirts and fun. Really early. It was like 6:30 this morning. I didn't go. But I learned.
I'm shocked you wouldn't get up that early.
I was awake, for the record. I already told you this, but I didn't end up going. I figured I wanted to get a few shut-eye hours, So I knew Sun Prairie did this, but I never knew. We all know about Punxsutawney Phil, the world-famous groundhog. I didn't know Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, and Sun Prairie, Wisconsin had beef. They have beef with one another. So back in like 40 years ago, longer than that. So this was the 76th annual. This is back at the 4th annual. So 72 years ago, the Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania newspaper wrote that Sun Prairie, quote, is a remote 2-cow village buried somewhere in the wilderness. So Sun Prairie jabs back the following year in response to the Punxsutawney newspaper by donning itself, claiming that Sun Prairie, Wisconsin is, quote, the groundhog capital of the world. If you Google groundhog capital of the world, the city of Sun Prairie website is the first result. So Sun Prairie, Wisconsin and Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania have a 72-year-long beef where they are two of the only cities in the country that annually bring out a groundhog to tell you whether or not spring's coming quicker, which, by the way, it is. Shout out to Punxsutawney Phil and all the other groundhogs just up the street in the groundhog capital of the world. I need to do a deep dive on that beef for next year, Groundhog Day. I'm going to make a documentary about the beef between Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania and Sun Prairie, Wisconsin. Add it to the list. Woo! High energy today. Appreciate you hanging out with us. Big thanks to Rob Demovsky for giving all the insights and his opinions on the Green Bay Packers from his car, nonetheless. What a selfless guy. Big thanks to Tiny Hands, Hunter Vaughn, maybe one of his best episodes ever today. We each had a fiery rant today. You on the Brewers, me on the Packers. I felt good about what we did today. I thought today was good stuff.
Yes, I feel really good for this being a Friday episode. Normally these can get a little loose, a little crazy, but we did some good work today.
We did.
Pat on the back.
Yeah, pat on the back to us. We deserve a cold brew from Lake Louis Brewing. We'll tell you more about them coming up on Monday. excited to partner up with them and some of the exciting stuff we have in the works with Lake Louie. But we'll talk more about that next week as we dive into Super Bowl week. Can't wait. Big thanks to Hunter. Big thanks to Rob. Big thanks to you for hanging out with us. We're back with you Monday at 12:30 on the ESPN Madison social channels, as well as wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, give us a thumbs up. Click subscribe. On Facebook, Twitter, same thing. Appreciate you hanging out with us. Make sure you come on back on Monday, beginning at 12:30. That'll do it for us. This has been Mr. Relevant. I'm Alex Strouf. Peace. Have a great weekend.